Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. For years at 2 Point Hospital, it's been our mission to help and to heal. Take Trevor, for instance. Trevor used to be happy, healthy, and wealthy. Life was good. He slept easily. That was until he suddenly developed lightheadedness. The daily commute is now even more of a grind for Trevor. Even simple pleasures like heading to the movies can be painful. Every day we welcome new admissions to our growing multi-million-dollar facility. Our team of highly trained clinicians and support staff are dedicated to your well-being. We'll do whatever it takes. At 2 Point Hospital, we never stop improving. We never stop building. We never stop caring. Isn't that right, Trevor? Call 4417-529-USIC today to book your free consultation.
So this is, you guys put this together. I think it's worth just having a little talk about the bullet points on your studio vision, because it is quite refreshing.
Yeah, actually, we've stolen a phrase which I think was initially mentioned by Dean at Sega, which he said, you guys did the little people games, and I really like that. Sort of, it's a very warm, friendly kind of phrase, and yeah, we want to make little people games. That's kind of our ethos, if you like.
Yeah, I think that's what we want to do at 2 Point is make these kind of games. It's not. Yeah. We're not going to go and revisit a lot of.
We
different
enjoy
things.
them as well.
Yeah,
we're okay at them, and we enjoy
We're
making
okay at them.
But also,
We've made some of the best sim games in history. We're okay at them.
Yeah. The bottom line, I think, is the important one for me. It's we really want everybody to be empowered to design the game. Bullfrog used to be designed by Bullfrog. If you've got any old Bullfrog games, it never said designed by anybody in particular. It just said designed by Bullfrog. This game is designed by 2 Point because we all contribute, we all add value to it, and we don't really want to have any one person have that responsibility. We'd rather have a collective responsibility to make great games.
Thanks.
So
Some are more equal than others, though, Mark, right?
So this is the first photo of the studio. I remember seeing this coming up on social media and feeling really annoyed that I wasn't in the pub with you.
This is us spending Sega's money wisely.
Yeah. This is day one.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So there we go. So after that, you've had day one. Oh, here's the rest of the team, guys. So here's everyone that you got to handpick.
Well, the thing with day one is
you,
you set up your machine, you've put your deposit on your office, and you've kind of like bought an office plan, and you've watered it, and then suddenly you're actually just slightly putting off the fact you've got to make this game. So we went to the pub just because we had a little bit of a moment.
Yeah.
Well, it's something to celebrate. It's been a year in the making, getting to the point where we actually started. All these guys are just waiting for us to go. We're there.
Yeah.
We're starting. So again, and the landlord just saying we're definitely going to move in soon, and
the amount of
him holding the office for us.
The amount of hands-on faces that's happened in that photo is quite wonderful.
I think there's succession planning going on there, because I think that old bloke isn't looking too well, so everyone's thinking, I'll have his job.
Which old bloke?
The two lying down.
We're not
But if you wouldn't mind going back a slide, that's all right.
Yeah.
The other important thing is we're not just old Bullfrog, old Lionhead people with that kind of... becomes a little bit inbred if you're not careful. We've brought a whole bunch of fresh new studio experiences to the team because we want new ideas, we want to be re-educated, because we have been kind of institutionalised within Lionhead and Bullfrog before it. So these guys are going to help give us a broader view.
I didn't say that.
There we go. So, let's crack on. You've started a studio, you've thought of the game, you're back from the pub. What happens now?
Then we got to start making the game.
Oh yeah.
To start off with that, there's a whole bunch of questions need answering about how fun the game's going to be, how certain bits are going to work. So we sort of started with a bunch of prototypes. Prototypes being like quick and dirty experiments to find bits of the game. So there were a whole bunch of questions we wanted to answer, like would Unity, the engine we're using, would it be performant enough to run with a whole bunch of characters all looking unique? So we did this... let's go forward one slide. Yeah.
There you go.
So we did this horrible-looking thing, but with a ton of characters on screen, all completely individual, all made up of lots of different parts. This is all using our programmer's amazing art. He did these like hats that look like weird Jamiroquai things, but that was just like a
so there's a bunch of things
experiment.
we wanted to achieve, and you had a bunch of questions about how we're going to do that. You again on the art side, you and Mark, and then on the game side, you wanted to get to the game as quickly as possible, as you know, so we can start playing it. We don't care what it looked like, and in fact, you move on to the next one. We got the room building one. I mean, the GUI. It just didn't really matter what the game looked like as long as you can start playing early, and that's kind of what we.
Yeah, it's a bit weird though, because there's all these questions that we want answering, but for a sim game like this, which is it's the sum of its parts, it means that to test any one thing, you kind of have to already have a whole game made to try them out. So we did have to sort of quickly make this, again, quick and dirty, whole game of a hospital simulation. So we had my early thing that we used for pitching as well, which was like a proper game, but with these little cylinder guys that slid around the level, avoiding each other and everything. They all had like desires. They had very simple desires. It was like go to the toilet or eat.
You know, I'd never thought about that. That I mean, I know we've talked about the term vertical slice and getting something together, but that you need to have a full game in order to have any game when you're prototyping something like this.
That's the problem. It's not, you can't make one nice level that looks really like the final game, because there's so many systems that affect each other. You kind of need to make the whole thing and then layer it on top.
To be honest, that follows through into production, because what we found from working on these games previously is you need to get to that game really early, because the hard work is the balance and finding getting to the fun and getting to the challenge. And if you don't leave enough time for that, even no matter how beautiful it looks, no matter how techy the game is, it just will fall over. So we just need as much time as possible to fine-tune the gameplay.
And that's kind of where we are now. It's still a long way to go, but you know,
I think we've got
it looks okay.
One little. I mean, you guys would have seen lightheadedness in our trailer as well, but this is obviously the concept from that.
All I'd say on the concept stuff is we don't do reams and reams of concept work, which mainly because we haven't got any good concept artists, and I'd say that as part of the art team.
Because it's you.
But what we do is we all get involved with the concepts for the crazy machines, the crazy illnesses, and it's just almost like banter around the office. And if it kind of starts to work as a sort of an in-house joke, it makes its way into the game. If it starts to fall away or we don't find it funny or interesting or quirky, we don't make it. So we don't spend ages on concept art. It's more about the discussion around an idea. We almost tell stories about it, build character up.
Well, I suppose we should do what we're here to do, which is to show people some world-exclusive gameplay footage.
Ooh. So before you press it, this is pre-alpha. We are not ready yet. So anything that doesn't look
we're not ready
right,
for this.
We're on it. I promise.
Yeah,
can never be ready.
So go.
Do I get to say roll VT?
Yes.
I've never done it. It's
roll
very exciting.
VT. I said it.
Thanks. We both did.
Can't hear it though.
It's okay. So while we're just getting the intro and zooming into what we're going to be looking at, for those people that maybe don't know, what is 2 Point Hospital?
Ben?
What's 2 Point Hospital? It's a hospital management simulation game, which sounds awfully dry, but it's a game inspired by a lot of the old simulation games these guys used to make, including Team Hospital. It's a game about building up your hospital, building up a hospital like a healthcare empire. There's multiple hospitals in.
I really like the thought of a healthcare empire.
Yeah,
that makes me feel really
we haven't
happy.
used that term before. I'm making this up.
Yeah.
But that world that you saw there, that was 2 Point County. That's like a little world that we've made where there's all different hospitals that you can jump into and manage. Yeah.
That's it.
One of the exciting things that people are going to be noticing from this is that you can change the view, which may be something that hasn't been seen so
we've
much.
gone fully 3D.
Right? It's not just
Wow.
2D. Look at
This
this.
is next-gen stuff.
It's
We
like
had to
it's
learn another
2018.
dimension.
Yeah.
I only knew of two.
Can't teach an old dog a new dimension. That's what I heard.
I'm putting that on my CV.
So tell us a bit about the art style. What was the real kind of inspiration for the art style that you've gone for?
Okay, so when these games tend to be like mosaics, that you build up more and more elements, and they get really busy. So you have to be really careful with the art not to make it too detailed or too complex, because it starts to get very noisy. It's just a phrase we use in industry. So we decided to come up with something that we also thought wouldn't age. The original game that we worked on years ago has aged quite well. Pixels have aged better than early 3D geometry has aged, if you like. So we were really mindful of that. We want to make a game that people are going to play in 20 years' time as well. So we've gone for a very simple, clean, almost clay-looking art style. A lot of people, and even though we didn't think of this at the time, have mentioned Aardman, and it's a little bit like something Aardman would produce, but that was actually coincidental. But yeah, it's very simple, very clean. But when you build layer upon layer of it, it becomes very pretty, and you'll see that later on in the demo. Mm.
Absolutely. So I suppose, I mean, we can't see. We're going to be seeing so much more as this builds up, so we'll just let it kind of
All I'll say about
exist.
this slightly slow part, which I intentionally built in here, is this is reflecting the prototype work. You know, we wanted to be able to build rooms, keep the game flowing. The earlier games didn't flow when you were building. We didn't have that kind of technology at the time, but the game keeps moving. You can do more interesting room shapes, and you can pick up rooms and move them around without having to stop the game.
It just looks so pretty. I love watching it just kind of appear before you as it's being built. It's wonderful. So how important was it to you guys that the animations as a whole, not anything in particular, that the animations as a whole were kind of entertaining in their own right?
Yeah, I think the animation is just another one of those layers which just adds a huge amount. And I mean, some of the illnesses we kind of thought of illnesses, and a couple of them I thought, it's not very funny, until the guy, Chris and John have done the animations, and they just make them hilarious.
They nailed it.
Really good.
Yeah, it's not until you see stuff in motion that you realise, this is hilarious. But it's not just the illness animations. There's just the stuff that they're doing in the world. Just everything, opening doors, using a vending machine,
dancing.
There's dancing.
Yeah, and kind of showing you how they're feeling as well.
Yeah.
So that's something.
All of that is really important, and it really adds to the flavour of it. Like it looks good as static shots of the game. The art, the modelling is great, but it's seeing it all in motion that really sort of makes the characters feel
and
alive.
It does. I mean, you can almost people watch with this game.
Yeah.
You can sit there and just pick out one person and follow them through their little journey through the hospital.
Because they all look different.
Yeah.
They all absolutely look different, and we've built a system of traits as well into the game. So if somebody's angry, just naturally angry, you'll see them get angry if something goes wrong. If the coffee's cold or whatever, they'll get angry about it. If somebody's quite a bit of a flirt, you'll see them flirt. So all these little nuances are there in the game to watch, yeah.
So we're starting to see a bit more of the illnesses. I mean, we've got some kind of straightforward ones as well as some of the excellent ones that you guys have made up. So tell us a little bit about...
That's really how X-rays are, right? That's what happens when you have an X-ray, isn't it?
Exactly that. Tell us a bit about the illnesses then.
So we've got a couple on show today. Actually, there's three I can see in here. We've got something we call grey anatomy. Oh, look, there's a doctor having a bit of a jig there. He's quite happy in his job. We have another one which is... we haven't got a name for it yet. You could call it mummified or Curse of the Mummy. Ben, what are we calling it? Curse of the Mummy, OK. And also you'll see one which was in the trailer, which is the lightheadedness. But we also have... people have to be diagnosed, so we have a straightforward diagnosis processes. This person's having some fluid analysis done right now, which looks very painful.
Always makes me wince. It's horrible. That's so exciting. So how do you, when you're coming up with the illnesses, what's the process for coming up with the illnesses and their kind of respective cures?
Well, if we
way
laugh,
of fixing?
makes us laugh, it's gonna...
Got a chance,
got a chance, yeah.
There's the occasional bit of acting in the office where just we'll have have an idea about how a machine can work, and like Chris, the animator, will sort of act it out a little bit. And if we can think of funny motions to it, or funny names for things, or just any kind of like slight shred of humour.
Cameltoe, of course, is the guy with a foot.
Apparently so.
Is Mark trying to plug his own ideas again?
Trying to wedge it in again. Yeah.
Sometimes the struggle is you've got a really good visual illness and you can't think of a cure and vice versa. So
yeah. But we just someone just mentions it, and then everyone else sort of starts thinking about this and builds on the idea, and we'll each chip in little bits, either part of what they do, or part of how it's described, or part of the machine that cures them. Any of that stuff, we'll just we'll build upon it until it's something funny, or if it's not funny, we'll axe it. Yeah.
And I suppose that's what's really useful about having such a small and open team, as it were, is that you can literally chuck it up on the screen, and if everyone's in hysterics, okay, that's through. Yeah. If you know, if you're sitting in tumbleweed,
and
then I guess
everyone's a designer, everyone's really creative with it, so everybody gets involved.
They are,
some of them are less good than others, but yeah.
Well, I think it looks wonderful, guys. I'm just saying.
There's
I mean, I've
still
seen
lots
it.
to do. I keep saying that there's still lots to do. We're pre-alpha.
Yeah.
So we are going to keep the gameplay rolling. We'll just start it again once this way finishes, so everyone can have a look. And then I just want to know a little bit about when we can expect the game to be out. And then I thought maybe we'd open it up to the crowd.
Okay.
Yeah? Tell us, Gary, when will it be out?
Oh, you want an actual date?
No.
I didn't think so.
I could ask a
as
question
it said
no
there,
answer
we're coming out hopefully in the fall, or autumn as you call it.
Later this year.
I think it's called Autumn.
Okay. Yeah, this
So
year,
that's not far. So you guys have...
I know, I'm bricking
You've hit
it.
the ground running.
You've got to get on with it.
It's going to be great. Really. It's going to be awesome. Right, if we were to ask some questions, do you want me to run around with the mic? Yeah? You're going to have to... Does that make more sense? There you go. You take this because I won't be answering it. We did get through that.
Yes. Just wondering, will you have the earthquakes again, and will that result in a room you can't demolish?
What did you say?
Earthquakes. Another
earthquakes.
Yeah.
There'll be some natural disasters occurring. Yeah. So.
And also, will you be able to make your hospital be more than one floor, or will it all be still ground floor? Can you expand?
That's one of the things we experimented with.
The question was, is it all going to be on one floor or multiple floors? So we experimented with multiple floors in prototyping. It ended up being quite confusing. It's like in The Sims does that, where you have the buttons for switching between floors. It ends up just being a bit weird. So one of the idea of having multiple floors seems like a normal hospital, but when you're kind of having a view of what's going on in your hospital, you don't know what's going on the other floors, so it might visually be a better thing, but I don't think gameplay-wise it creates a better experience. I mean, actually putting on multiple floors isn't that difficult, but then you've got to, what floor do you want to look at? Jump around the different floors. Yeah, we didn't like it. We had a bit of a play with it. Yeah.
And with the earthquakes, the other question was, will there be earthquakes and natural disasters in the game? We've done the earthquakes, but it's terribly poorly balanced currently. It's done differently to Theme Hospital, but it generates like bits of debris from the ceiling. So currently it's a bit. There'll be an earthquake, and your whole hospital will be covered in little bits of ceiling, which is we need to work on that.
Yeah. One of the things about having 2 Point County and multiple areas which you'll unlock and discover as you expand your organisation is there will be regions that will be very different. So you can imagine how we can utilise that for unusual events that could take place. So just imagine our planet with all the different things that can go on. We're going to cram this into a 2 Point
some
County.
Hot areas and cold areas and dealing with that, and then tectonic places.
You might need to put...
Who said that?
Who said that? We have a ghost in the room.
Is there any diseases or anything else?
The hose... is there any illnesses that are contagious in the hospital? So, like, say, for example, someone comes in with lightheadedness, can that spread in the hospital?
Is there any contagious illnesses?
Is there any contagious illnesses? Yeah, there is. We've got a completely, certainly 20 years ago, Theme Hospital had a very strange epidemic system, and it was insane. So I think we've done a much better job. I think we've done a better job this time. Yeah, so yeah, there are contagious illnesses, and I think we do it a lot better.
And second question is there any multiplayer or co-op play that you're thinking about implementing? In some
Might be.
Yeah, we're not really talking about that yet. We're not allowed to talk about that. But yeah,
we've got some ideas.
Yeah.
More than ideas. We've got some stuff we're doing, but we're not ready to.
Can't take his mic off him, can you?
We're not
that's
ready
true.
To.
I can't. I mean, I could
You
touch
can
him
try.
off the
It'll be
stage,
really
but I
It's
might get in
interesting
trouble.
because it's essentially a single-player game.
Yeah.
And so how do you marry that up with being more social with your playing? And so I think we've got quite a good solution. We'll see.
We've got something
That
we like.
is
We're
something.
not ready to lift the lid on exactly
And
what
it's
yet.
opt in.
Yeah.
We will talk about all of this at another time.
don't
Look,
need
if
a
I keep talking
microphone.
over him, he might stop. Sorry, Gary. But this is a really good time to talk about Hospital Pass ever so quickly. So thank you all so much for sitting and listening to us ramble on about video games. It's always appreciated. We have, if you head over to our website, which is 2pointhospital.com, you can sign up for Hospital Pass, which means you'll be able to get exclusive footage, behind the scenes, all of that kind of stuff going on at the studio, me interviewing these guys about whatever might have happened that day in game, and an exclusive in-game item that we're not going to talk about once we launch. So,
What could it be? What about follow us on Twitter as well?
Oh, you can follow us on Twitter at 2 Point Hospital is how you can find us, or at 2 Point Studios. We're on obviously Facebook as well. So yeah, catch up with us. We'd love to speak to you guys over Twitter. We like doing that. Anyways, thanks very much, everyone. Thanks for listening,
Thanks
and thanks guys for taking some time.
Thank you.